Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Nur Ain Ramli and I will share some tips and method on how to study effectively. So let's go. Learning study methods will not only help you in university, but they will also help you to succeed in working life. So did you ever heard about how university students succeed to have high CGPA? How did they study when they have a lot to remember for each semester? And how about people who work whilst pursuing their study? How did they manage their time well and still done their assignment in the allocated time? So in this speech, I will answer all of these questions to everyone here. So the study methods that the person learn in the study phase can help them to do their tasks even when it comes to working environment, because most of study methods teach people how to use the time effectively and to avoid distraction. Because I personally tried all of this method and it's surprisingly I can perform in my final exam. So by developing effective study methods, you may be able to cut down the number of hours spent on studying, leaving more time for other things in your life. So, good study method can increase your confidence, competence, and self-esteem. They also can reduce anxiety about tests and deadline. So good study method can improve your ability to learn and retain the knowledge. For the first one is that SQ3R method. So this is a reading comprehension technique that can help user in identifying important facts and classify the information within the paragraph that they read. So SQ3R stand for survey, question, read, recite, and review. Survey is that instead of reading the entire book, you need to start skimming the first chapter and taking notes on any heading, subheading, image, or any standout features such as charts or diagram. For question, you need to formulate question around the content of the chapter, such as what is this chapter about? What do I really need to know about this chapter? Next, you need to read. So begin reading the full chapter and look for answer and question you formulated. For recite, after you read just now, summarize it in your own word, what you already read. Try recall and identifying major points and answer any question from the second step. Next is review. Once you finish the chapter, it is important to review the material fully to understand them. Next is quiz yourself on the question you create and reread any portion you needed. Besides learning this technique, it can help you to change negative impression on reading. So this technique will assist the student to changing their unfavorable perception about reading textbook. So this method is progressive, will enable the student to be independent, while other technique need student to rely on the instructor for guidance to understand something. So teachers too need to use this technique because it will make reading less difficult and it will make fun. So they can use a lot of different things in classroom to help the student to improvise their skill. One of them by using this technique. So one way to help students to improvise their reading skill is that teach them how to read. So this method will directly instruct how to use to reading more effectively. So many students, on the other hand, are not good at reading, so they don't have the basic skill on how to read that are needed in the classroom and for future job related tasks, and because it has big impact for their future education. So a lot of strategies that have been used in teaching reading comprehension, but this technique is the only one that works for everyone. So this technique will help the student to better understanding the description in the text that they read. So this strategy will help to teach the student on how to read more methodically and structure their reading, which help them. Moving on to the next one is that space practice. So what is this? This is a method that encourages the student to study in a longer period instead of staying up all night before the examination. So making some spacing in studying can help our mind to make connection between the idea that we learned before, and it can be easily recalled during later in the next study session. So there are 4 sessions, is that day 1, day 2, day 3, week 1, after week 1 and after 2 weeks. You need to revisit and review what you already learned. So this technique is involve early planning, which if you want to use this, you need to try this few months or few weeks before your examination. So how does this technique work? Firstly, it may seem strange, but forgetting to remember is essential. When we are close to forgetting something, our brain must work harder to remember them. So during the cram session, your short-term memory will flooded with a lot of information that you read, and it will quickly forgotten. Meanwhile, your long-term memory will benefit from using this technique, which is space technique. So instead of cramming all of information at once. So because of this, space learning is very effective method. So eventually, you will be able to retrieve all the knowledge you learned from your long-term memory without having to work at all. So the first few sessions, your brain will be working hard to remember the information. Repetition of this content will help you to retain and to build upon it. So this method really helps someone that have a lot to remember in the future and to avoid last-minute study. So it is also can practice your mind to remember something that almost you forget. Last but not least, the PQ4R method. This method is specifically to improve your memorization and to understanding the topic more. So if you remember, it has similarity with the one that I mentioned earlier, which is SQ3R. So PQ4R stands for preview, question, read, reflect, recite, and review. For preview, you need to preview the information before you start to read to get an idea what is subject is all about. You need to skim the material and read only the headers, subheading, and the highlighted text in the paragraph. So next is you need to question yourself. Ask yourself a question that related to the topic, such as what do I expect to learn? What do I really need to know about this topic? Next is you need to read. Read the information in one section at a time and try to identify answer to your question. This is important to make sure you understand each pieces of the information that you read. So because each unit is likely to build on the material you have already learned. Next, for reflect. So did you answer all of your question? If not, you need to go back and see if you can find the answer that you don't know. Next is you need to recite in your own work. It either speak or write down in piece of paper. Write a summary of your information that you read just now. Next is that you need to review. Look over the material over time and answer the question that you not answer yet. Let us question ourselves. Is there any difference with someone that practice this technique with this someone that don't know this technique exists? Okay, for me, in this study, it found that students who are using this technique or being taught to this technique have better reading skills rather than students that don't know this technique exists or they are using different method. Okay, students who are smarter also have better reading skills than students who just are not smart. It means that how well a student can read depends on how smart they are. So this is because this technique will help you to improve your memorization and help you to understand whatever you are reading. This is because it will involve the step that I already discussed earlier, and based on what I discussed earlier, the method PQ4R method will teach the user to practice their mind in memorizing something. On the top of that, it will lead to understanding the topic that they are reading. So good technique. Reading technique is vital to avoid time consuming and strictly will help you in memorization. To conclude, there are numerous study techniques that available out there. So this is our responsibility to experiment with all the methods and choose the one that suits your style. So during this era, people can search on the internet about something new, about new study method that were developed. So everyone should grab this opportunity to have a good study method for ourselves. So this is absolutely can help in our daily life, not just a student who are still studying. Either you choose to use any technique or to create methods that are suitable for yourself. So by doing that, you can help yourself, but you also can help the others by spreading the practice to others. Before I end my speech, I would like to highlight the study method that we discussed earlier. So the first one is that the SQ3R method, which is this method is a reading comprehension technique that can help a student or the users in identifying the important facts and to classify the information within the paragraph. The second one is that space practice. So this method that it will encourage students to study in a longer period instead of staying all night before the examination or burn the midnight oil. The last one is that PQ4R method. So this method is specifically to improve the memorization and to understand the topic more clearly. So that's all from me. Thank you for having me.